Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I actually admire that you can actually be this fake, and like when the TV comes on, how you can just change. You're the scum of the earth.
Don't doubt me, I couldn't do it. The odds that I couldn't do it. Look at me now. Lebanon, headshot, dead. That's it.
There's guys out there that are doing this day in and day out. They live and breathe this stuff that they don't get the recognition or credit that they deserve.
What is the secret to fighting?
Not being a fucking pussy. Honestly, you can teach anybody how to fight. But like if you're a fucking pussy, that's a really hard thing to teach someone not to be.
This one right here was supposed to be on paper the most interesting fight, in my opinion. Ian Garry, Geoff Neal. You got Jeff Hands of Steel Neal, who respectfully went 3 rounds with Garry.
Yep.
Could have, I mean,
it was a very close decision.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it was very it was very noticeable that he got robbed, but if Geoff Neal would have won, I would have been like, okay,
there's a case for it for sure.
There's a fighter's case,
Yeah.
Now
absolutely.
I will say this, Geoff Neal, and you'll probably agree with me. If Geoff Neal had just thrown 20 punches in clinch, he would have won that fight.
Yeah, the clinches I feel like hurt him more than helped him last night. Typically, he's really good in the clinch, but then his coaches called it out, right? Like the stalling almost, because he wasn't really active in the clinch. So every time he had Ian Garry up against the cage in the clinch, he wasn't doing damage there.
No.
He was obviously the aggressor, and definitely had octagon control, but Ian Garry seemed to be really good at kind of his movement and circling away and fighting from a distance, which he's always been really good at. I think Machado Garry did just enough to edge out the decision, but like we've already said, I think if Geoff Neal had gotten his hand raised last night, I could have saw that as well.
See, and that's what I was kind of saying, why I want to see fights like Yair versus Ilya. It's like a similar scenario, you got a guy like Ian Garry who's 6'3", extended reach advantage on Geoff Neal. You have Geoff Neal, who is a inside boxer who can piece you up if he gets inside you. Shavkat rocked, he's got heavy ass hands. Very similar fighting style to a guy. Not saying he has a fighting style like Ilya, but Ilya is a good boxer. Ilya has power punches. If he gets inside of you, it could be over with one punch. So to have a guy like Ian Garry control the distance, utilize his kicks, utilize his push kicks, utilize his head, his distant control, that right there won him the fight. So it's going to require Geoff Neal to push him up against the cage, but he didn't do anything, and that's why he lost the fight. If he would have just thrown rib shots, if he would have just thrown uppercuts inside, if he would have tried to come over Gary's guard or anything, attempted takedowns, something that wasn't just holding him up against the cage, I think he could have edged out the decision, to be honest. So
yeah, absolutely, I agree. I think I think Ian Garry did just enough, man. I think he did just enough. He did, he got busted up too. He took some shots, but it just felt like his shots that he landed on Geoff Neal were cleaner. A lot of body kicks.
I was a 29-28 guy in that fight. I thought Neal won the first round. Garry won 2 and 3. So I wasn't a big fan of the 30-27 because I didn't think Garry won all 3 rounds. But
it's like 6 one way, half dozen the other. I don't know that it really matters, right? So whether he wins 29-28 or 30-27, it's irrelevant, right?
Sure.
I think I had it 30-27, obviously, but again, who the fuck am I and who gives a shit? That's what they said right before they announced the decision. Because as we're watching the fight and they have the Twitter feed in the bottom left corner where all the people are giving their opinions on how they scored it and who's winning. And there's people saying Neal won. There's people saying Garry won, this and that. It's the only 3 judges in the world that matter right now is what John Anik said. Which is so true, right? We can all give our opinions on how we scored it this way or that way. I mean, it doesn't matter. 29-28, Garry still wins.
Yep.
Whether you give him that first round or not.
I agree.
But he still wins. He won the decision. But the story here for me is like, I think if Ian Garry was able to come out and get a dominant victory, it would have done a lot more for his case. As far as like, the people that hate on him and talk shit on him and all these different things. I don't think last night's victory over Geoff Neal really did anything as far as the way people look at Ian Garry.
I saw a few memes when it was like Daniel Cormier was like, "Oh, right now, next Leon Edwards and Ian Garry would be a great fight." Like everybody's like, "Nah, bro. Look at him. He's not even barely winning this fight. You're gonna put him up against the champ,
right?"
Like, nah, bro. Ian Garry's got a long way to go.
Yeah, I think he does. I mean, Geoff Neal's tough for anybody because his fucking chin is crazy. He's got a lot of power.
Shavkat beats Ian Garry right now.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's why Ian Garry's in Brazil training grappling as hard as he is, because he knows
didn't even utilize it at all last night either.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean,
but that's what happens when you train with Charles Oliveira.
Right. Well, Charles Oliveira initiates most of his ground game because he got knocked down beforehand.
Exactly.
Right. Like Charles Oliveira gets fucking popped, gets fucking knocked down, and then people jump on top of him.
And then he puts you in a fucking triangle.
Yeah, and then 30 seconds later, you're tapping out going, what the fuck just happened?
Why did I go guard with him?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, Ian Garry's still undefeated. I mean, there's nothing much you can say about it. Call him a cuck all you want to, but guy knows how to win fights. So
yeah, for sure. The him as a person, they put out a video, or he put out a video recently kind of describing that whole situation. If anybody listening hasn't seen that, I suggest you listen to it. It does give a different perspective on the whole situation with his nutritionist / wife's ex-husband.
Please make it make sense, because I haven't watched this video yet.
So there's a stepson involved in that previous marriage for her, and the nutritionist. So there's a child involved with them. So he took her last name. So his child and his stepson can have the same last name. He hired the ex-husband as his nutritionist and brings him along to travel with them, so he doesn't separate a kid from his father. And the stepson and the ex-husband are all together with them, and it's a weird dynamic. I'm not like by any means defending this whole weird ass situation he has going on, but it's kind of like, fuck, like I want to hate him so much, and then it's like, damn, like when you put it,
this guy's
like
out here
that,
playing Jesus, doesn't want to take kids away from their parents and stuff.
What are you gonna talk shit on that?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's kind of
absolutely, I am.
I don't know, man.
No.
Yeah, it's kind of like,
no, I better stop before I get the damn Nick Merckx cancel culture people coming after me for saying something reckless about people.
Yeah,
who knows? Jesus.
But I just, I don't know. When I listened to that, I was just kind of like, fuck, right? Like,
I'm gonna need a little bit more detail on that. I mean, that sounds okay, I guess, in hindsight, but like, brother, you don't have to hire him as your nutritionist to keep him close to his family. Like, just allow him to visit if that's the case.
Well, he just travels with them and the stepson. They all travel together. Everybody stays together constantly. And then obviously he wouldn't be able to do that without, being able to earn a living. So being hired as Ian Garry's nutritionist now allows him to earn a living as he's traveling with
them.
Yeah.
And that man's also been inside your wife and seen your wife's tits.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's sitting right next to you, eating lunch, cooking you dinner.
Yeah,
like, I guess that is kind of
meals.
like that's kind of like an alpha move, though. Like, you're my cook and you're making me dinners.
Maybe
maybe
it's a whole different perspective.
Maybe it's like one of those weird like scenarios where he's like in his mind thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna make this man cook for me. I know he's seen my wife's tits, but cook me some chicken, bruh.
Well, then everybody leave a comment on this video whether or not you think Ian Garry is a cuck. If you
Yeah.
think Ian Gary's a cuck, leave that comment. If you think that maybe he took the mature route and you have a different perspective on it, tell us about it. Let us know.